involvement of committee participation, etc. So that's really the intent of tonight, is to try to give you guys an understanding of what the strategic plan looks like. Again, this plan was developed in conjunction with GGA partners. There was a lot of people involved. I do want to thank everybody that participated in the survey and the focus groups. That was a very large part of all of the input, in addition to GGA doing market analysis, both internally and externally, a lot of demographic work, a lot of financial modeling. But that's been really important that we now have a plan that's based on the feedback that we've received from you, our members. The survey has been shared. It's available on the website. If you haven't gotten through that yet, I suggest you go take a look at it. It has a lot more detail that has fed into the strategic plan. And the idea here is this strategic plan really provides us with a roadmap. You know, for example, we've had the master plan for the golf course for a couple of years. We've just updated it, but it's now time to look at the entire facility and look at both the physical plant, but also things around membership structure, the programs that we provide to our youth and our golfers and our swim teams and all those sorts of things. So it's really looking at and laying out the groundwork. And as we call it here, our strategic plan is our journey to 2025. It really does look at what are the things we need to do in the next 12 months, 36 months, 5 years, and ultimately 10 years to enhance the club, keep the club viable, and really drive us forward. There's some talking points here. It's just an introduction. It gives you a lot more detail. So if you get a chance to go through this, I would read through this. This and the next the next page really talks about where we are, what they did to put this strategic plan together, and really looking at how does it position us, what's caused us to be where we're at today, and how do we move forward. This really talks about how to take the club to the next level. So just for those of you that are aware, you know, historically we've had some issues where we've had some underfunded capital needs. We have a club that's got a lot of assets that haven't been maintained, and for a lot of reasons. We've had some situations where because of membership drops across the industry, that we've been using some capital needs to help fund operating losses. The good news is over the last 2 years now, we're in a position where we are performing at a profitable or at least break-even state. I want to thank the management team, both under Michael and now under Joe, the financial management under their staff, as well as with Keith Ruck's leadership on Treasury, to get us in a position where we're much more financially stable. But we're also in a position where we're not in a position to take on a lot more debt. We just did the refinancing. We paid for the irrigation system. We paid for the first phase of the golf course. And so we've got to look at all the financial components of that. And we've got to strategically grow our membership and put forth a capital plan that really positions us for the future. The only way we really move this thing forward is membership growth. So we have to both retain those of you that are here, and we have to retain you through programming and providing quality facilities, but also grow that membership in a very controlled and a strategic process. This is really, the fact that we've got a club here is a great base to start with. We have a great golf course. We've got a good foundation from a clubhouse perspective, a pool and a tennis court, a bowling alley. There are a lot of clubs that don't have all those other components. So we're starting with a great base. We've got a great membership. And that became clear. GGA was very complimentary on the folks that were involved in the surveys and the focus groups, how passionate people are about our club. We also know that we've got challenges that we need to address, and we have opportunities to improve. So in order to do that, there are things we need to do to both remain competitive and remain relevant in the market, but also remain relevant to you all, our members. So this is where we're at. We have a mission statement that we've had for a couple of years now. We've now created a vision statement, which is on this slide. The board spent an entire day last Saturday going through a lot of details and data, and one of the outcomes of that day was this vision of what we think our club really needs to be in the future. And the intent and the approach is that Riverton Country Club will be the preferred private club for both the South Jersey and Philadelphia communities seeking outstanding facilities and experiences in a welcoming, family-friendly environment that celebrates our century-old history and promotes lifelong friendships. That's really kind of the vision of what we think this club both is and where we need to go. So we want to celebrate our past. We're going to look at current conditions. We want to look at how we grow, and we really want to provide both those outstanding facilities and experiences. So it's not just the physical plant, but it's what happens when you get here. How are you addressed? It's just all those components that as we use this tagline, when you're here, you're home. We have to continue to do that. So I'm not going to walk through these strategic pillars, and then again at the end we'll talk about some specific action steps. So the first pillarship is really around leadership and governance. One of the outcomes of the survey was pointed to better board transparency and more consistent approach to adhering to rules. So one of the things we are focused on as a board, and we're pushing to all the committees, is being as transparent as we can. We have no one sitting in a back room making decisions without having communications with committees, all the input you all provided. So we really want to continue these sorts of town halls, be very open and transparent to why we're making decisions, what those decisions are, how we got there. As I said, we did a full board orientation for an entire day on a Saturday. I want to thank the board members who kind of sat there from 9 to 5, and we covered a lot of topics. And it's really started to help set the groundwork for where we are today and what we have to focus on for the next 12 months and ultimately for the next couple of years. We are setting specific board objectives. As those get finalized, we will share all those with you at the annual meeting in April on what the board and the committees will be working on for the upcoming year. There are some things in the bylaws that we think need to be amended. Some of them are just kind of catching up with time. Some of them are just some typographical issues. So we will be looking at reviewing the bylaws and potentially putting forth a motion in April for some bylaw changes. We are working more diligently around the rules enforcement. First and foremost, we have to understand what are our policies. So we're doing an entire policy review. What are the rules to enforce those policies, and how does that happen? And as the last part, as we're starting here tonight, is really just continue to communicate. We have to improve our communications both ways, both from us coming out to you, but we have to use our committee structures as well as all the relationships we have so that we can hear back from you in a more timely and an efficient manner. We have a lot around the capital planning. As I said, we have a lot of work to do. We've spent a lot of money on the irrigation system. We've all talked about the upcoming changes to the golf course. The finance committee is the first thing we're working on is the capital reserve study. So we have an asset list of all of our assets in this club. That gets maintained, it gets reflected on our balance sheet. But what we don't know is what's the lifespan of each of those pieces of equipment. We know when they were purchased, we know how much they cost, but we don't necessarily know when's the next time we have to replace a piece of kitchen equipment or a roof or heaters or boilers. We've done a lot of that stuff. So the idea here is that we'll actually put together and we have a firm that will come in and put that whole study together so that we'll have a view over the next bunch of years that we know in 2021, we're going to have to, based on the life expectancy of certain equipment, this is what we should plan to spend just for capital maintenance. So that'll be critical. So we have that going forward. We have a long-range planning committee that has issued RFPs to several firms, and we're now shortlisting that down to about 3 firms to come in and do a full facility master plan. And what does that mean? That means that we're going to work with architects and engineers to look at our clubhouse, to look at the pool, to look at the tennis courts, the parking lots, all of the facilities short of the golf course, because we have a master plan for the golf course, and help us working both with the long-range planning committee, the other committees, as well as the board, and feedback from you all that we've got from the survey, is to put together a facility plan that says this is what we want to work on over the next 3 to 5 years. Part of that will then be prioritizing them and strategically phasing that so that we're not going to do one thing versus the other thing, that we have a plan. And I'll be the first to admit, last year I probably tried to jump a little bit forward with the patio because we've had some issues with the patio. COVID happened. It was probably a good thing because we've now taken a step back saying we've got to fix the patio because there's some safety issues, and we've addressed some of that. But we have to have a plan that shows what does that patio look like? What does the space around the patio look like? How does the patio engage with the bar? So ultimately the idea is that we will have a plan that you all can see and vote on and discuss about what we want our facilities to look like going forward. So part of that is the last bullet talks about here, a lot of member input and approval on all of that activity. We've got to have appropriate targets on our member recruitment and retention. We have to have controlled growth. So we've had a very good year this year, thanks to all of you who are referring your friends and families. Donna has done a great job with bringing a lot of members in this year, but we've also noticed that it's caused some issues. And so we have, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we get to membership optimization, but we have to control the growth. We've got to grow. We need more members. The more members we get, as we talk about financials and all those sorts of things, the more dues we have coming in, the more financially stable we get. So we have to continue to grow. But also more importantly, and as important, is we have to retain you all, right? We have to provide the services and the value you expect to get for the amount of money that you're paying. And so we've got to go through that. And that's critical as well. We will put together promotions and payment plans. We'll talk a little bit about that, and you'll hear more as we go forward on what those look like to drive that in. And we can have to continue to market and communicate what we're offering. You know, we had Casey on board last year. Our social media presence to the new members has been a great send. Our Instagram statistics show that we've got way more followers now, 4 or 5 times more than we had a year ago. She's now left. We've hired a new communications director. That announcement will be coming out shortly. But that marketing and the communications piece, working with Donna and Dan Gianetto on the membership committee, will be critical to get the members in. But then also work on enhancing our onboarding. We have an ambassador program. I know Dan Gianetto and the membership committee is looking at how do we increase that capability, that once somebody comes in the door, they're engaged and they want to stay here. So retention is important, recruitment is important. We have to address both of those. And as I said, once you're in the door, we've got to talk about, you know, what are those exceptional programs that keep you here and keep you engaged and have you coming back. We've got a great golf course that people, you know, it's kind of the centerpiece of what it's about. But we also have to commit to evaluating and improving all the other amenities around dining, around pool, around the rackets facilities, the bowling alley, all those areas that both from an amenities perspective and a facilities perspective, but also all those programs that are as important. You know, what's the junior golf program look like? What does the junior tennis program look like? Do we have a ladies program for golf? You know, how do we enhance all of those things to really make sure that the amenities are great, but so are the programs. And when we talk about the non-golf amenities, one of the downturns in our membership this year was in the house members. And so we know that in order to continue to attract house members and to retain house members, we have to offer some things that are not golf related. We have to look at our pool facilities. The survey said that was, you know, one of the top 3 items was the facilities at the pool, both the bathrooms and the showers and the capabilities there. We've had a lot of interest in fitness facilities, especially a lot of our newer members are looking for that. And so I talked about the issues with the patio. So that's another area where we've really got to look at it, and that's one of our key pillars. The membership category optimization, it's a big word. The first thing I want to say is, as you read through this, none of these changes that we're talking about will affect anybody who's currently in your categories. GGA has made some recommendations, some of which we've decided we're not going to move forward with at this point. So, for example, single golf. We have eliminated the single golf category for new members. If you're a current single golf member, you stay in the category, no changes occur, but we're not selling single golf anymore to non-married folks. Senior golf, they made some recommendations on, as you'll read here, adjust the qualifying criteria to age 75 with 25 years of tenure. At this point, we've opted not to do that. So we will be looking at, are there some caps that should be put in place with seniors, but we're not changing the criteria at this point. And we're also not eliminating the honorary membership for those that have been here 50 years. We just think it's the right thing to do to continue to honor those folks with your long tenure. As it relates to the young professionals and the intermediates, we will be making some changes on those fronts. The biggest thing is we're going to look at what the capability is and providing what we're calling soft caps, where we're going to pause selling some of those memberships, but we're also going to introduce some restricted memberships for those categories that will restrict when they have access to the golf course. And that's a marketing thing that we think is helpful. So again, you'll hear more of this as we go through it. And as it relates to house, we really have to add more amenities in order to continue to drive the house membership. We had a lot of loss in house memberships this year. And so, via amenities and programming, we really need to focus on the house memberships. The other piece that we will be getting into is that we are now setting a set initiation fee for all golf memberships. So it will be $7,500 as an initiation fee across the board. There will be different payment plans available to intermediates, young professionals, and full golf, but we felt it was more prudent that everyone's paying the same amount to walk in. Just a question of how long it takes for you to pay that amount. And again, you'll get more of this as the membership and committee and Donna get the marketing material put together. From an operational excellence perspective, we've got to get to managing this club using data and get away from the emotions and the anecdotes. We hear a lot of, there's always rumors flying around. There's always well, this is really bad because, and it's been one incident or one person gets worked up about something, good and bad. And so one of the things we really need to get back to is we've got to have solid financial models before we make decisions. We've got to make sure that the completion of the facilities master plan, we'll be able to use that for determining future funding. But the reality is we have to run this as a business. It's a club that we all love and we want to be here. But if we don't have the right data, we don't have the right financials, we don't have the right people making decisions based on data, we're going to continue to kind of run by the seat of our pants. And so, there are some things we're doing. We're putting in a new operating system you'll hear more about called Jonas. That'll provide more key performance indicators for Joe and his team to manage and for the board to react to. But we've got to get more on the operational excellence part. Kevin has provided a bunch of data to both myself and GGA and some of our members who are doing analysis, looking at where's the utilization, who's using the golf course, and the compaction is a term you'll hear, where the holiday morning or the weekend mornings and Friday mornings are busy. How do we manage all that? And unless we have the data, we're getting people just reacting. It feels like, we hear a lot of, it feels like so-and-so, it feels like this is happening. So we're gonna focus a lot on having data to actually support the components we're talking about. Oh, did I skip one? Nope, that's it. So, lastly, we're going to look at measuring success based on having superior facilities, quality programs, variety of services and opportunities to really become the #1 disputed course in the area and club in the area. We really want to look at that as a vision, but it can only be successful if we follow through with what we've put in place. So we've put a lot of effort into putting this plan together, and the board is committed. I think the staff is committed that we're going to use this as the roadmap to help drive us forward. Again, I want to thank a lot of people that were involved in putting all this together. Obviously, the board was involved. The entire management team spent time with all the GGA folks in culling data. Kevin gave us a lot of information around golf access, Drew around the golf course, Donna around the membership component. And more importantly, all the members and your involvement both in the surveys and the focus groups were instrumental in getting us to this place. So what I want to talk about now is, based on that, some of the activities that are currently going on. So out of this strategic plan, what you don't see behind the scenes is we also have about a 90+ step action plan that GGA has also provided with us. And some of that currently runs out through the year, 2 years, 3 years, and some of it's just ongoing things that we need to do. So we're using that checklist and that action plan to help drive the steps, both from a board perspective, a committee perspective, and a staff perspective, to make sure that we're staying in lockstep with that strategic plan. These are some of the key items that came out that we are focusing on between now and March, and then I'll provide more information in April. And we'll try and do this kind of on a quarterly basis of what those action plans are and what we've achieved. But right now, the board is focused on making changes to our board policies and again, potentially amending some certain bylaws. But we will have a board policy manual that we will share with the membership that the board is going to use to govern itself. That will then also drive all of our policies and the committees. Again, we will make sure that is all on our website and available to everyone so that everyone's aware of exactly what's going on. We did a board orientation program, as I said, and we're in the process of setting the annual objectives for this upcoming fiscal year, which starts on April 1st. We are working on improving the communication plan. And again, the disciplinary process around the rules enforcement was a pretty big thing in the survey, that we just have to be consistent. So we need to know what are the policies, what are the rules, what are the processes for following those rules, and when those aren't adhered to, what's the enforcement process. As we talked about from a strategic perspective, we have engaged, or in the process of engaging a firm to do the capital reserve study. That hasn't been finalized yet. And we are in the process of working with an RFP response to work on engaging a firm to develop the facility master plan. On the membership side, again, we've put together the budget for this coming year, but we're looking at the 3 to 5 year and what are those growth targets? What categories do we want to grow? How do we manage that growth? We will address the promotions and payment plans. So again, there's going to be a lot more marketing material that's coming out from Donna and the membership committee to drive that membership in, so we can start the year April 1st in a strong point as we have in the last 2 years. We've talked about adjusting some of the membership categories and the pricing associated with that. Hopefully you also noticed that we were not having any dues increase this year. That just felt like the right thing to do from an environment perspective, but also when we put the budget together, based on all the department heads' requests, and everybody pretty much is getting what they need to tell us to run this club the way it needs to be run. So we thought it was really important that we were able to say, we're not going to have a dues increase because we put together a budget that is completely fiscally responsible based on that. Now, it's also dependent on continuing to drive membership and continuing to have folks utilize the clubhouse and utilize the facilities and all those sorts of things. From an operations perspective, we do want to look at enhancing the caddy program. And I know Jim Lutz and the golf committee are going to be working with Kevin on what does that look like, because that was, again, a survey item where a number of people said that they would like to see our caddy program enhanced because we have a great walkable golf course, and how do we take advantage of that? I talked about the real-time reporting and the KPI tracking, and you'll see more of that as this Jonas system starts to roll out, but we will be able to provide real-time data, not only to the board and the committees, but also out to you all. We will continue to monitor golf course access. Across the industry this year, golf course access went crazy because it was one of the areas where everybody felt a little comfortable because they were outside. And golf course rounds were up across the industry. I think even with us being, for all intents and purposes, shut down for 6 weeks and then limited to twosomes every 60 minutes, we're still somewhere between 26 to 28%, 29% above normal access compared to last year. So we got a lot of people wanting to play golf, and we have to continue to monitor that access, make sure the appropriate access is being provided to the right people. And then the food and beverage operations was another survey item that we really need to look at. And so we are continuing to look hard at that. We're working hard through Joe's team with both April and Hannah on how to enhance that, evaluate what the current situations are, and again, use data to help drive the changes that we potentially need to make on the food and beverage operation. So some other activities that are going to come up late summer and fall. Again, we will complete this capital reserve study. That will give us a forward-looking view of what we think our capital needs are, just from a capital maintenance perspective. We will complete the facilities master plan. Once that's completed, that will get presented to the membership for approval. And there'll be some iterations. We'll probably put some drafts out, ask for some feedback. There'll be a couple iterations working with whatever firm we decide to work on to get your all buy-in on that, what that master plan looks like. Out of that, there'll be specific projects because it'll be a multi-year plan, but we'll have to phase it strategically. And the key there is that we're not, doing something in phase one that we're going to end up having to completely redo in phase two. And we're not just doing the what I term the pet projects. Let's go do this or do that, or let's do this to the Hemingway, or let's do this to the patio. We're going to have a plan, and we're going to propose both the plan and those specific projects to you all. Based on that, we're going to also propose the golf course master plan next steps in late summer, and then present the funding plan for those upcoming projects. So I know there's been noise about floating around, and I've had people asking, well, can we just write a check for a certain amount and get the golf course done, or get the patio done? The reality is we don't know what that costs yet. We don't have all of that down, and until we have a plan that we all sign up for, we're not in a position to state what that's going to look like. And so that will end up, taking 5 to 6 months to get that plan done. And so our projection is somewhere around late summer or fall, we'll be in a position to then present that entire plan to you, along with what does that mean from a cost and a funding perspective. You guys in the survey were all great saying, the survey results said people would be willing to pay, upfront $2,500 or 6% more every year to fund activities and to fund enhancements. But again, we just don't know what that number is. And we're not going to go crazy, but we have to have a plan. We have to lay it out in front of you, and we have to specifically explain to you, what does it look like? What are you going to get? What does that cost? And how are we going to fund that? It's going to be a combination of existing cash that we have in the bank today, the dues that come in. We continue to grow the membership, continue to produce profits like we are now. That helps with funding capital projects. And so that's kind of what we're thinking about from the key action steps that will be happening later in the year. And again, we'll have more update on that in the annual meeting. So coming out of this, next steps. This strategic plan will be posted to the website. This meeting is also being recorded, so that we'll post that for those that couldn't attend in person. We have another one, as we said, on Saturday or Sunday at 4 o'clock. If you have any questions, we have an email box, tkearns@rivertoncc.com. That'll come direct to me. I can then help direct that question, whether that needs to go to a committee chair or to Joe. But I'm happy to field all those questions from you all. And then we'll provide another update at the annual meeting in April. So that's the long and short of the strategic plan. I will open it up and see if we've got questions at this point. So if anybody has questions, we'll take a pause and you guys can fire away. As of right now, we don't have any questions. I feel like we should be playing the Jeopardy theme.
First question is, can you do it for me?
No, that's an easy, quick answer. Not without hurting myself. All right.
All right, just go ahead.
Oh, here we go.
What happens to these plans as the board changes?
Oh, great question. So the idea of the reason you have a strategic plan is that. Oh, thanks. Yeah. So the question was, what happens to these plans as the board changes? One of the reasons that you do a strategic plan, much like we did a golf course master plan, is that as folks cycle through boards, committees, et cetera, there is a governing document that is the roadmap that people adhere to. So the assumption and the intent would be that we have a strategic plan. We will put a facilities master plan together. But as boards come through, those facilities master plans were what was, and much like the golf courses, what has been approved by the members and what is the governing body. And so much like we just can't randomly go out and let's just make a major change to a hole because it's in our bylaws that we can't make a change to the golf course unless it adheres to the master plan. We'll have something similar here that says we have a strategic plan, we have a facilities plan that people will adhere to and manage that going forward. So my intent, my understanding would be there's both a strategic plan, there's a facilities master plan, and that should drive, regardless of who's on the board, of things that get managed going forward.
Next question, has the board analyzed the revenue loss we will experience in the next 5 years if existing members transition to senior golf?
Yeah, so the question was, have we done the financial analysis if existing members continue to transition to senior golf and what the financial implications are? And the answer is yes. Part of the reason for GGA's recommendation on moving to the 75 was when we looked at the financial impact of what it looks like in moving to senior golf. While there is a financial impact, there's also the thing you have to take into consideration is that folks have been here and are going through the 25-year process. In order to curtail the financial impact, what our recommendation has been going forward is that we are going to basically, for all intents and purposes, cap the number of people that will go into senior golf. And right now that limit we're looking at still has roadway to absorb some upcoming senior members. And then we'll get to a point where there will be a certain number, still figuring out what exactly that number is of how many people will be in that category. Similar to the way that we're doing, we'll have a certain number for intermediate and young pro 1 and 2. And the assumption would be that as members progress out of senior golf, either into honorary or down to house or something like that, that a spot would open up. But we will set a limit on the number of people that will be in senior golf, because we just continue to have it go forward without any sort of barrier to entry. It could be a heavier financial hit. The analysis we've done says we can absorb the changes we're proposing without having a significant change, assuming we continue to backfill with full golf and other